Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Another edition live at Drew's house. Hope everybody's doing well. Sarah is here. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Drew.
Hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving, happy and healthy and all that good stuff. I know some of you were getting very creative with how to see family members, whether it be virtually or in garages or outdoors. Weather actually didn't end up being too bad for Thanksgiving, Sarah. I thought it was a fairly decent weather day, a little misty.
Yeah, I mean, it was raining, but it was like warmish. So I guess it would have been a lot worse if it was cold.
Yeah, it is cold, so the winter hat comes back around this time of year.
Yeah.
As you know. Coronavirus, as you know, working in the schools, as everybody knows, it's kind of surging again here in Massachusetts. That is why everybody's being so careful with these family gatherings. And we're already hearing the governor and everybody kind of ramp up towards Christmas. A lot of that same messaging that we just heard on Thanksgiving about social distancing and keeping apart, and the best way to beat the virus is to, not get the virus. So that's kind of the where we're at, which is interesting. Yeah. More good vaccine news. Moderna vaccine, they applied for their thing with the FDA. A lot of questions going around. Would you take the vaccine?
Yes, if the science backs it.
If the science backs it. That's a good answer. It's going to be interesting to see how this rolls out. Whole new world. It's going to be for the elderly and healthcare and that first. I wonder when the American public will get it. But
yeah, it'll take a while to roll out to a point where we would even be offered it, right?
Months away, I think.
Yeah.
It's crazy that the whole world is just kind of waiting for this, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What is the what's the Christmas plan for you? You got anything interesting going on?
I think everyone's just waiting to see.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have said, look at the weather and see if there's like a nice day in the week where you can celebrate outside. But I don't know. I don't think we can celebrate indoors.
You decorated the house very nicely.
I did decorate.
Our house is very decorated.
Yeah.
She did a great job. She's very good at it.
Drew helped with the boxes.
I bring the boxes up. That is my go-to play. You know who I am? So I'm having somebody on here. He's actually my old Little League teammate. He might not even remember that, but he's a year or two older than me. We went to high school together, at least for a little while. We weren't incredibly close or anything, but his name is Zac Whitman, and a local guy, and he actually got COVID at the beginning of this pandemic and got it really badly. Was hospitalized for a long time. He's got a family, kid, at least one kid, maybe two. Couldn't see him, and he was one of those guys that they wheeled out of the hospital, and they had the big line, and everybody applauded and big cheers and stuff. So it was dicey for him. And I kind of thought it would be a good public service to bring somebody on who actually had this thing, really battled it. And, so many people, especially our age, like this is a kid that's our age, you're not even, I think he's maybe 35. I'll ask Zach here in a second, but a young guy, and he really got this thing bad for all those people that are just saying, we're young, we'll beat it. It's a dangerous thing, and that's kind of the public service I was hoping for. So should be interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, you got to run.
I do.
I'm going to trade you for Zac Whitman.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Good to see
you. All right, welcome back live at Drew's house here. We say goodbye to Sarah. We bring in Zac Whitman. Zach, I was just saying in our little intro here before I brought you in, we were old Little League teammates back in the day.
Yes, we were.
You remember this, of course.
I do.
Excellent ball clubs. And you said you are a busy man at home right now. Tell us what you got going on right now.
So currently I've got 2 children doing remote classes. One is 8, and he's in front of me with a pencil, not up his nose, but to the side of his nose. And my daughter is somewhere doing something, all while trying to work remotely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
MIT.
Off the air here, he says to me, he goes, and I believe I have another child around here somewhere, which I thought was pretty priceless. So very good. So everybody, first of all, I gave the quick intro. How old are you? You're 2 years older than me, right? So you're mid-30s?
Yeah, 34.
34, okay. So which is only important because I do want to get into your story a little bit of the coronavirus. Obviously, this thing is surging right now in Massachusetts. It's surging throughout the whole country. And I mean, I'm sure you see it too. Hopefully people try not to do it in front of you, maybe not knowing your story, but this is something that a lot of people our age really brush off. I'm young, even if I get it, we'll be good, no big deal. But you had it, and it was a big deal.
Yeah, I was definitely one of the, not first cases, but definitely early cases. I ended up getting it around like April 18th. And then, you know, without going into great detail about everything, you know, ER visit number 1, medication, ER visit number 2 turned into a hospital stay, down 20 pounds, you know, 16 straight days of, you know, nonstop fever, nonstop everything. And I thought I did everything right. You know, at the time, my girlfriend and I, we were staying together, working from home, not going out. You know, we were picking and choosing who was going to go out, get food, get masks, you know, with a mask and stuff. And somehow we actually both got it. She didn't get it as bad as me. She lost her sense of smell and stuff like that. But, you know, we both got it. And as I said, it was a hellish experience. And it turned out to be the 100th departure at Winchester Hospital. So, you know, there were some plus sides to it, but it's definitely something that is still surging and hugely fearful of. And because of my role over at MIT, you know, it was something that I always had to have in the back of my mind, because, you know, you and I, you know, we're in our early 30s. I'm working with students and faculty that range from early 20s to, you know, 70s. And we were supporting classes and doing a variety of different things.
Crazy. So what was the first, I have a few questions off of that, but what was the first thing that you said, I have to go to the emergency room? Because I imagine that takes a lot for you to get to that point. What was the first symptom?
Well, it wasn't the first symptom. It was all of them hitting me at once. I mean, you know, for people who have experienced COVID and for people who hear about it, it starts off with like body aches or nothing. And then it incubates and goes over through the whole period, and then you get hit with it. And I ended up having, you know, like the sore throat, the dizziness, the fatigue, the heavy fever, all that stuff. And, you know, the big game changer for me was when my O2 stats started dropping. You know, once it went below like 96% oxygen saturation, that's when the doctors go, well, okay, we'll keep us posted. And then when you hit 94%, it's okay, you need to go to the emergency room.
Wow, that must be an incredibly scary experience.
It was, yes. Luckily, I had some really great support, but definitely very scary to go through.
So you literally, when you say hit you all at once, that's you felt like you got hit by a truck. I mean, everything just happens at once. You drop the weight, the shortness of breath, everything.
I mean, I would say hit by a truck's a nice way of putting it. Getting hit by a 737 is probably better, because it's one of those things where, for me, and everyone's different, I went from feeling okay to getting tested, getting confirmed tested with positive case, and then wanting to have someone like drive over me. That's how much pain I was in. Nothing felt good. Couldn't eat. Couldn't do anything. Like I was just laid out in bed for days.
Man.
So everyone's different though.
And you were, like you said, you were an early case. You're right at the beginning of this pandemic, so you've had some time since. But there must have been a lot of this that you still. I mean, we're still searching for answers in general as a world on COVID and what exactly it is. But you must have been kind of like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, and it was. I think it was scarier for the frontline workers, and you know, everyone should praise the work that those people do, because when I got it, it was one of those things where, well, we don't know what might help you, but here's something. And we probably shouldn't give this to you, but we're going to do it anyways. And it was all around when I got hospitalized, it was all around when, President Trump started making some strange comments as to how to feel better. And like, no one knew what to do. No one.
Yeah.
So
you could see, actually, I get the sense you could actually see some fear in the medical workers' eyes, like overwhelmed and.
Yeah, I mean, at the time when I was in there, they weren't fully prepared for like the PPE like you see right now, which is the full masks and all that stuff. Like they had the N95s, they had some things, but they didn't know what COVID was. And I believe, somewhere in between when I got it and thereafter, that's when it was actually acknowledged that it could go airborne and it's a respiratory piece. They knew you could get, pneumonia, but they didn't know the full way of transmission. And so many things have changed since I've, gone through the whole ordeal. And
your wife gets it at the same time, essentially?
Girlfriend. And she got it, and it was much lighter for her. Hers lasted longer in terms of like, she had to quarantine longer. But for me, it was intense. For her, it was no smell, no taste, and then coughing issues nonstop. And that's one of the things that they harped on, is that you're not considered able to go back into the world until the fever goes and the coughs go. It's one thing to feel fatigued and feel like crappy, but it's another thing if you're constantly in that state of anything over like 100 temp and anything over just a little cough.
And obviously you're in the hospital, you have to be separated from your family. I know that's brutal. What about the kids? I mean, did you have concerns about them getting it?
I was very concerned, but we all got tested at the exact same time. I, again, am a very lucky individual to work at MIT and have the resources that they have. We all got tested. We found out within 24 hours all of our results. I know these days some people are waiting 10, 20 days to just try and figure out what's going on. But once I got the positive case and the kids got the negative case, I actually contacted my ex-wife. She came up. I completely quarantined in my room. And then it was just one of those things of masks all the time went around the kids. Don't touch anything that they are coming near. Like even when you went into the bathroom, you had to like make sure you bleached everything just because you didn't know.
Yeah. And what is the role over at MIT, just because it came up a couple times?
I'm the audiovisual support services manager at MIT Sloan. So it's the management school. And it's been huge because, it segues into post-COVID for me. I've had to, be in charge of something like 40 plus individual techs and making sure they're getting tested all the time. And it was a lot.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk, and again, we're joined here by Zac Whitman. And Zac, where are you coming to us from? Where are you living?
We are in Medford.
Medford.
At least, at least that's where I think I'm at. it's coming after the whole Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, but try bouncing around a little. This must be. I want to stick with the medical workers thing for 1 second because I have seen you make posts on Facebook and everything, just how you really owe so much to them and how great they were with you. What was that whole ride like with the people that treated you?
The ride with them was an intense roller coaster because you knew that what they were going through just to treat you my life is worth a lot to me, but it might not be worth a lot to others. And these people put theirs far beyond anything I could imagine. Like they were sacrificing it all. The men and women that came in to treat me, they may not have been able to see their kids. They may have had to sleep on, couches and hang out at the hospital and run longer shifts because there was just not enough staffing. I mean, it's intense. And, my mother is a frontline worker over at Salem Hospital. And like, these people may not be getting tested as frequently as you'd like, or as frequently as they'd like, but they're risking their lives every moment of every day.
It must, that must kind of be, you must think about them a lot, especially as we talk about a surge kind of coming back here in the cold weather months. I mean, granted, your mother, never mind the fact that your mother works in that industry and works in a hospital, but in general, the healthcare workers, because it's kind of like they're suiting up to kind of go back at it again.
Yeah, I mean, there was a doctor on the news this morning that supposedly has worked 252 days straight treating patients. And I mean, I can only imagine how tough it is for these frontline workers and all that they're sacrificing. And I mean, it doesn't sound like they're getting much, extra pay. And I don't know if they care about that. I think they just care about, helping these people and hoping people do the right thing. So this doesn't continue in terms of this trend.
And for people who don't recognize you and didn't see your story, that was a pretty cool moment when they lined the hospital outside. They wheeled you out in a wheelchair after you were free to go. And that must still bring back some heavy emotions for you.
Yeah, I mean, I was just so thankful to no longer be in that hospital. It makes you feel like you're passing on to, the good side of things. When you're in the hospital, you don't know if it's going to turn, and it was quite lovely to leave. I still had to quarantine for an additional 10 days. So it wasn't like I could go back home. I had to stay at my girlfriend's house. But it was nice to know it was passing.
Was there a moment when you were in that hospital when maybe you had like a moment with somebody who treated you and you're just kind of like, maybe, I don't know if you said thank you, but if it was just kind of like you both kind of like were here for each other, that sort of thing. Was there one moment or one story that sticks with you?
I think they all do. It didn't matter if it was the, healthcare worker that was coming up and bringing you something to try to eat, or if it was a person bringing you, a med, or just a glass of water, or just someone that was checking in on you, or even the doctors. Every single person who came into the unit I was in, which was a full COVID unit, was risking it all for these patients. So you had to thank them.
That's a pretty scary unit to be in, right? I mean, everybody around you is battling this strange thing.
Yeah, and it was like the only thing that was reassuring for me was that I didn't have the COVID pneumonia, whereas the people around me did. And I didn't see anyone on ventilators. Obviously, I was in a very specific room and couldn't go out and do any of that stuff. But I mean, there were people way worse than I was. And, again, all of these frontline workers were risking it all for people who either just happened to get it or were stupid enough to get it by not following the rules. And I think that, looking back on it, we owe them a huge debt of gratitude.
Yeah, certainly something I've heard a lot here. Post-COVID, we'll never take anybody for granted that works in those conditions again, if we ever did in the first place. But again, Zac Whitman joining us. What's the, I guess, kind of a heavy question, but I mean, I know it's something you've thought about, so I'll ask it. I mean, when you go in that hospital, are you ever, it's got to cross your mind that what happens if I don't get that wheeled out of there on that other side? Nobody knows what this thing is.
I will not say that I had a near-death experience, but when you don't sleep for 4 to 5 days straight and all you're doing is having a crazy fever and all that other stuff, you teeter on that landing of am I talking to something above me? Am I talking to, God or whatever it might be? And all I did at that moment, and I'm not a religious person, all I did was pray. I just wanted to get the hell out of there.
What was the part of the, cause I mean, I understand that feeling. What's the toughest day or moment? Do you remember, is it just the overall pain? Was there a moment when you're yelling at the ceiling, you feel like you're losing your mind? What's specifically the hardest part, you think?
I think the hardest part, hands down, was being in the hospital, knowing that no one could visit me. When, it's awful sitting in FaceTime with, like, I wear glasses, so it's the only way I could see, but I couldn't even wear my glasses, and I was FaceTiming, my kids, and I was reassuring them that I was going to come home, and I didn't know that I was going to come home. Because when I first got into the the bed and got situated, I wanted to make sure that they knew I was okay, but I also knew I wasn't okay. And to lie or to fabricate just to make sure that they aren't freaking out further, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I know I guess in that situation, what you try to do is you try to get yourself thinking positive, right? And give yourself those same pep talks. That's probably what you're trying to do with your kids too. I mean, was there moments where you could tell you were just fighting yourself, saying, come on, get through this?
I mean, every step of the way. There was no time where you didn't want to give yourself that pep talk. There was definitely times where that pep talk didn't work. Because it was just like one thing after another. But you had to, because when you're experiencing something like that, like ultimately, if you're not willing to fight, you just give up, and your body wants to give up. And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, they say that goes a long way when you're willing to fight. Did your mother get to come in and see you, being in another hospital, or?
Nope, she was not allowed in. No one was allowed in. Even when I got picked up, it's, my girlfriend at the time, she had to make sure that, like, the car was specifically placed, X amount of feet away from the hospital. Like, they didn't want anyone near her, didn't want anyone, near me. And, like, I had to be masked up for days. So it was a lot.
Jeez. Do you, how many days was it, by the way?
I was in the hospital over at Winchester for like 3 or 4 days. And that was the second stint, because the first time was, an ER thing. And again, when I went through it, they didn't know what was going on. So they gave me something that they thought would help, and it actually made me worse.
Mm. Wow.
So
it's interesting. You hear all these stories are coming out now. We have the vaccine news, which it seems to be a fast moving process, which I know is promising, but for a while, when it comes to the general public, this is still going to be all about social distancing and doing the right things. You must look at it when you see people not doing the right things, because I know you can probably just look out your window sometimes and maybe see some violations of social distancing and all that stuff. I'm sure you see it. Even on the news, you can see it. What is your reaction to that? Is it fury? Is it anger? Is it, what is it?
I think that, obviously, you and I know each other from the past, and like the thing that I wanted to avoid in this call was anything political. But unfortunately, when you have rhetoric being spewed out there that is so non-scientific and so off the cuff and really dangerous, it puts people in a place where they listen to the propaganda and they make stupid decisions. I think we luck out in where we live in Massachusetts that most people social distance and do the right thing. But there are a lot of people that think that there's places to be lenient, and I'm not thrilled at the way that we're still carrying on, especially during the surge. I mean, I went out to grab a quick bite to eat the other day, and people were packed at tables, and outdoor eating in a tent that's not ventilated, that's not outdoor eating. There's so many things that people are doing wrong, in my opinion, that just leave an opening for it. And I felt really concerned with all the stuff that I was hearing and seeing, especially in my immediate neighborhood, with families gathering over Thanksgiving. Like, I love my family, but I sure as heck am not going to put myself in a position where their bubble's not the same as my bubble. Yeah.
And what would you say to that? Because there's people our age. I mean, I have buddies in my circle who just they think differently. Maybe it's the jobs they work in that they can't think about it. I don't know, but they do. They just don't treat it as seriously. There's some, even on this Thanksgiving, it feels like maybe some certain states, people that live in different states that traveled for Thanksgiving, like it's some people just don't treat it as seriously. What would you say to that person? Think about the 34, 35-year-old, people our age, this can be bad for you.
I would say to them, maybe you're the lucky one that just is asymptomatic, but maybe you're also that asymptomatic person that passes it on to your grandmother, your grandfather, someone that is immune compromised, and then look what you've done because of your rash behaviors. And I also look at it from the perspective of, you might think that it's going to be like the cold or something else, but you might end up with post-COVID symptoms like me, and you're going to hate that too.
Yeah. What are those, by the way? Have you got through most of this stuff? What's the deal?
I am still in the process of trying to figure out what needs to be done, because there's just some things like the brain fog, the fatigue, tremors, and the heart issues that are just not fun. And, I've had to continue to see doctors and get check-ins and all these other things. And it's taxing. Like, I didn't even put myself in the position where I thought I was going to get COVID and I got COVID. If you're, flagrant enough to think that a mask isn't necessary, that you can just mingle with whoever and everything's going to be fine, I mean, you've got the wrong idea, Yeah,
man. Well, that's, it's crazy. The post, I wonder, when you, is there a part of you that, I don't want to say fears going out, because I know you go out, but is there a part of you that just looks at the world completely differently now? That restaurant, that normal situations, at least for the time being?
So my extent of going out is like, I've gone out once or twice in the past 4 months in situations. Like, I live in my home, I work in my home, and if I have to go to work, it's very minimal. We can't go back to normal right now, and this sucks. I hate being inside this much, but we got to do it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And we mentioned with this surge kicking in, I can see the pain in Governor Baker's face when he mentions this, and pretty much every leader, because I know they've met some of these people that had similar struggles like you. There is something too when you see it firsthand. All these people, you see it on the news. The person that called it fake news for the longest time, and then suddenly was like, I was wrong. This was a big mistake. And there is something to living it and seeing it, and that gives you a whole new perspective.
Yeah, I think the sadder part is, I am one of those people that has access to pretty darn good medical care.
Yeah.
I lucked out with not having crazy bills for it. And there's probably a ton of people that are just terrified to pay for testing, terrified, for the hospital bills. And, that can affect them and others. And we just need to all watch out for each other. And I wish there was more that was being done. There's no standard plan across this country. There's no standard plan across any cities. So, you're in Danvers these days?
Yep.
Yeah. Danvers is nothing like Medford in terms of their protocols, so we all got to get on the same page. Otherwise, this is just going to keep going.
What was the first thing you did when you finally started to feel like Zac Whitman again? When you started to feel like yourself? What was it? Did you get an ice cream or something? What did you do?
The first thing I actually did was I hugged my son.
That's right.
I didn't care about any of the food because I actually wasn't hungry. The first thing I did was I hugged my son, and then I bothered my 13-year-old, and she was like, it's good to see you here.
That's gotta be, I know we're laughing about it, but that has to be, you don't think about that, not being able to hug your kid. I mean, that must have been a hugely emotional moment when you finally got to do that again.
Oh, it's everything. And I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that are still waiting for that moment.
Yeah. So we'll keep them in our thoughts, keep all the hospital workers in our thoughts, and everybody battling this thing. Zac, well, I'm glad to hear. I know you're not back to 100% yet, but I'm glad to see you up right there and hanging out with the kids and doing the virtual living thing with us. We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. And stay healthy, my man. All right.
You too. Have a good one. Bye.
All right. How about that? First-hand account of living with COVID. Zac Whitman, an old Little League teammate of mine who I'm happy is still around. Fascinating stories, as you heard at the beginning. I say it was like he got hit by a truck, and he goes, no, it was more like he got hit by a jet airliner. It was whole body just failing at once. And it's hard to listen to because you know that there's a whole lot of people dealing with those symptoms right now. And I think a lot of people still don't realize it. It's a still new virus. It's still a new thing that people are battling. And I think a lot of people are still struggling to get their heads around it. And luckily, in this case, Zac Whitman was able to beat this, and he joined us here and gave us a little insight. I reached out when he got out of the hospital, I remember, because I saw the big ovation, all the hospital workers lining outside of Winchester Hospital and giving him the big applause. And I remember saying, hey, I know that guy. And I remember asking him not too long after that whether he wanted to come on, and he just wasn't up for it. So now we've given it some months to breathe a little bit, and it was good to have him come on the show for the reasons I mentioned. So Zac Whitman, best of health to you, and same goes to everybody out there as we get into this gap of pushing towards Christmas now with a COVID-19 surge on in Massachusetts and really through much of the country. Thank you to Sarah Conway as well, joining us at the beginning of the show. Zac Whitman and family, all the best. My name is Drew Moholland, live at Drew's house. Bye-bye now.